Everyone. Like Jenny said, this is the continuing education series for the Illinois State Referee Committee, November 2024 season self-reflection. My name is Shane Richards. I'm a regional referee currently, upgrading to be a national assistant referee, as well as a referee coach. So welcome everyone, and appreciate you taking the time for this education session. So what we're going to do is we're going to have this more lecture style, so there's not going to be videos or images. Really, it's more of a philosophical discussion presentation from myself, and then towards the end we'll have time carved out for question and answer. So kind of just absorb this information and take it and just try to just understand and digest it rather than critically think about one thing or the other. So let's dive right in. So what is self-reflection? Okay, so self-reflecting is a process, right? So when you are given something, in our case, it's officiating. So you want to recall what goals you set for yourself previously in a defined time period. So we're going to go from last season to this season, thus the season self-reflection. If you did not set any goals for the previous season, that's okay. By the end of this, I'm going to show you how and why you would want to do that. So you take those first goals, put them up on a board. That's what you have. Those are the goals you wanted to achieve for this season. Then you move along to what actually happened during the season. And to do that, you have to separate what is important versus what's not. So what's trivial in your games, like midfield throw-ins and things like that, things that just ultimately don't matter, versus penalty kick decisions, red cards, misconduct, etc. So being able to differentiate those things are important when you're reflecting, because you're not going to have a key takeaway on a bunch of different things in a match. You should have one or two takeaways per each match. Then you're going to be able to identify trends that occur from match to match. So if you have several things happen in a lot of your matches, that's a trend. So you can then identify that, and then that can be something you can work to improve, or perhaps that's a good trend that you want to continue. Once you've identified these trends and things that you want to improve or perhaps reinforce, then you would seek guidance and solutions, credible guidance and solutions, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Once you have that, you break down what went well, why, what didn't go so well, and why. You do that, comparing and contrasting the guidance you've been given, and that's ultimately how you take the takeaways and you apply them to your game. So once you have all of that done, then you can set your expectations for next year, the next cycle. So we're going to break down exactly how to do that. Whoops, one too many. But before we start, why do we self-reflect? We self-reflect because we get a lot of unfair criticism, obviously, from spectators, players, coaches, etc. That isn't necessarily in our best interest to take and use to better ourselves as a referee, as a person, etc. So what we're doing is what this process does is allows you to self-reflect by taking information that you know to be true, seeking out information, and improving yourself, because not every game is watched from someone that has your best interest in mind, right? Not every game is watched by a referee coach or a referee mentor to give you that feedback. So being able to identify some of that on your own is important. So reflection is important because you want to be able to improve your own understanding of a law, of the game, football understanding, be able to accurately apply considerations for your matches to ultimately make your matches better. Can improve your fitness, movement, positioning, things throughout the matches, ultimately improving the health of your own body, also while taking less risk on the field to prevent injury, and again, ultimately improving your own games. Improved relationships is a big part, I feel, because we associate with a lot of the same people when we do games in our pods, right? In our levels, we do a lot of games with the same people. So having those relationships is important, and being able to maintain those is good in self-reflection, because when we can learn from each other. We want to reduce the amount, quantity, frequency of errors and mistakes, and we're going to do that by self-reflecting and looking at our trends and taking that guidance and adjusting. as well as injury, right? So are you training specifically for success on the field, or are you just using refereeing as a way to stay fit? Um, the difference of those. And ultimately, the takeaway from self reflecting is to be able to take more challenging matches, or at least be able to do matches at a higher level or better the matches you're currently doing. So that's the whole reason why we would want to self reflect specifically in a time period of the season. So we can take what we've learned from this season and apply it to next season while comparing it to the previous season and see how far we've come. So, looking at your season as a whole, and when I say this, I mean the season that is just concluded. So let's say 2024, the year 2024. How to identify that? You identify what games, tournaments, events, etc., that you did this year, and you note all of those. That's what you did. That's your resume, so to speak. You take your game count into consideration. How many of what game did you do? What were the quality of those games? The difficulty, the level. Did you receive any feedback from anyone? Again, credibly. Um, if so, what was that? Identify that. Did you get assessed, either formally or informally, with developmental assessments offered through the ISRC? Um, what's your fitness? Do you believe that it is adequate for where you need it to be? Is there some things you want to change, improve, et cetera, et cetera? Again, all these things are something you have to identify personally to be able to look holistically at yourself. Referee interactions is how you interact with other referees. Like I mentioned, in your pod, in your level of refereeing, is this something that um, needs to be addressed, changed, keep it as is, etc. So moving on to the next step of self-reflecting, separating what matters and what doesn't matter. So this is more individual per game. So every single game should have some kind of takeaway. Good, bad, could be minor, could be major. It could be something as simple as you need to look at your assistant referees and make eye contact, or it could be something as major as um, misapplying a law, and now you want to know the correct answer. And we'll get into an example of that a little bit later. So an easy way, or not an easy way, but one of the identifiers of finding out what matters versus what doesn't matter is, and don't take this as every single time, because it's ultimately the referee's decision, right? If a particular decision is heavily protested on a game, that probably matters, right? That's probably an important decision, especially if it's surprising to you as to why that's uh, being protested, or perhaps you have doubt and you're showing lack of confidence in now something like that. But ultimately, the things that matter are not midfield throw-ins. They're not directions of that. They're not a goal kick or corner kick. If a player is saying, "Hey, that's a corner kick," and everybody else is upfield, that's not what I'm talking about. So identifying what matters and what doesn't. If you have a higher level referee speaking to you and saying, "Hey, this decision here, this penalty kick, what did you have?" and walk through the steps of that, that's something that matters. Um, the level and type of game also. So a U8 game versus a adult amateur match, or U16 boys versus U12 girls, etc. They have um, different levels of difficulty for different reasons. So what may be uh, a major point, a major takeaway in a U19 boys match may not be so big of a deal in a U10 youth game. Um, Typically, when you're outside your comfort zone, that's an opportunity to learn, because that's going to challenge you to get better, and ultimately you're going to either get the decision right and everything's good, or you make a mistake and you learn from that mistake. And errors and mistakes happen, and they do at all levels. They do with all people. I make them. Um, Everybody makes them. But successes and correct decisions also happen. So we need to identify when we're making the correct decisions and what we're doing right, and continue to do that, which we'll identify with trends. And then we need to identify where there's area of opportunity for us to learn and improve ourselves as well as our on-field officiating. So going into trends, Trends are what you constantly see, what constantly happens, game to game to game. You always hear about this about yourself, or this is always happening to you. You always, in every game, you have a yellow card for dissent. Always. That always happens to you. So if that's the case, that's a trend, right? That's something that would be considered abnormal. So now we've identified that, and now we can perhaps break it down in one of two ways. Do you really have dissent in every single one of your matches? Or is it something that perhaps I am the referee am doing to cause that, or perhaps I'm identifying it or misidentifying it? What can I do differently to deal with this? Because other officials are not having to deal with this in the way that I am. Are you physically sore all the time? If that's a trend that you see after every single match, again, there's a reason for that. Are you doing too many matches? Are the matches you're doing too much for you personally? Are you training for that match for the season? Are you training to be a referee, or are you refereeing to be fit? So again, things you have to identify. Trends, perhaps you're misapplying the laws consistently, something with a specific law that you just are not doing correctly. Let's say trivial things like, or not trivial things. Let's say stopping a promising attack. A better understanding of that. Perhaps you consistently have, like I mentioned, yellow cards for these reasons. What are the alternative options we can have when dealing with something that we constantly see? Perhaps we can have more tools in our tool belt to help us manage differently. But it's not always a bad trend. If assigners are always asking you for help, that means you are you are important to them, and that's a good trend to have. Why are they constantly helping you? They're probably helping you because you're either a good referee, or you're reliable, or they can always count on you. So those are important to identify as well. So is getting praise for your decisions. So if you're constantly getting compliments on your fitness, positioning, how you look, your aesthetics, your decisions, you're always correct. People are always complimenting you, like, "Wow, that was a really good game. Thank you." Those are things you need to identify, not to get a big ego and think you're the best referee in the world, but know where your strengths and weaknesses lie, so you can assist others and help them, but also improve your own weaknesses. So now you're improving what you don't do so well, and you're maintaining what you do well. So let's say you've identified a situation that you need assistance with. Let's stick with the dissent portion for now. Um, you need some assistance in understanding why you're having so much problem with dissent. Every single game you have a dissent yellow card of some kind, no matter the age, no matter the location, no matter where. How do you find credible guidance? Credible guidance is not someone on Facebook who has done a competitive U12 match and understands the laws as they know them to be. A credible source is either any of these that I've listed here, or ones that are directly affiliated with US Soccer, FIFA, Pro, or CONCACAF, or any other confederation like that. Some examples here would be the ISRC, IFAB Laws of the Game, US Soccer, referee coaches, FIFA, and Pro. Because you ultimately want the correct answer, right? You don't want to have a question go to what you think might be a credible source but is not, get the wrong information, and then apply it to your games incorrectly, and then need to be taught again the real correct way by someone else once it's been identified. That creates confusion, which is not something we want as referees, especially on the field, and within ourselves. So use one of these sources to seek out credible guidance when you have a question about something in your matches. So once you've got your information, you've learned what you can and can't do, or rather what you should and shouldn't do. How do we learn from that? So a couple of the examples I gave earlier. You're physically sore all the time. Are you doing anything to prevent that? These are correcting trends. that I'm talking about, right? Because when we go for the season reflection, we're not looking from game to game to game to game. We're looking holistically at what can we fix for the next time, the next season, to make our next season better, our 2025 season better. So if you're physically sore all the time, you've identified that as a trend. Are you stretching before your matches? Are you warming up? Are you taking the steps necessary to make sure your body is capable of handling this physical activity? Are you recovering? Are you doing uh, post game recovery of any kind? Are you doing your body favors by taking in the proper nutrition, stretching after the game, uh, rolling out your muscles, using a hydro gun, whatever, just preparing yourself for the next match because you've taken care of your body? Are you doing too many games? This is a problem I personally have dealt with, and I'm sure many people have. Is it's always easy to when you at the beginning of the year and you take all these games and then you come time to do them and you realize you have 8 straight weeks of 5 to 6 games a week. That is too much for your body. That you cannot do a game justice by adequately doing that many games in a row at that length of time. So you have to be cognizant of that. Are you nursing an injury? Are you hurt? And it is okay, perfectly fine, to ask yourself to be removed from assignments because you're injured. Because if you are injured and you go do an assignment and you further injure yourself, now you are even worse off than you were before. So you need to take the adequate time to heal. Fit to referee versus refereeing to be fit. What does this mean? This means, do you only do physical exercise when you're on the field and nothing more? Or do you take time to go for a run, to go to the gym, to stretch, to work out on your own individually, to do exercises that you would normally do in a match to prepare for your match, rather than just simply refereeing? And I call that my exercise for the day, the week, whatever. That's my exercise. The difference is you want to be able to match what you're doing in the match versus what you've trained for. That is more of a higher level concept, but I suggest everyone to maintain your own fitness outside of the field of play, because ultimately you're going to have better games because you're more fit to do those games. Misapplying laws and incorrect decisions is a trend. You must apply a law. Let's say you have a incorrect decision or a heavily protested decision in a game. Do you choose after the match to seek out and confirm that you've made the correct decision, or do you just kind of let it go and don't think about it anymore? You're like, nope, I'm the referee, I'm right, I can't be wrong, and that's it. So one way is you reflecting on yourself. You are looking and seeking the right answer to better yourself, or the other way, you just don't care. You're there and you did it and you're leaving. There's a difference. So if you want to progress and become better, you need to think about the games, perhaps on the drive home. What could I have done differently? What was a major key thing there? And that's how you identify what matters in a match versus what doesn't. The things that linger in your mind, those matter. Those matter. The other ones don't. So look up the answer, seek out the guidance, understand what's right versus what options you have, and then you have another tool for your tool belt for next time. Are you seeking out developmental assessments? We don't get near enough of these, in my opinion. On the website, you can request a developmental assessment. A referee coach like myself will come out to one of your matches and give you a full assessment, and give you guidance and ways to improve your game from a credible source. Highly recommend more people do that. Assigners, this has been the positive ones, right? If they always ask you to help, are you consistent? Are you reliable? They're willing to use you because you are always available. You help them. They know they can count on you. But this is a double-edged sword because you want to make sure that you don't take too many games. They need to understand that, yes, you're reliable, you're consistent. However, you need to be true to yourself and not overwork, not do too much. Make sure you're giving the game the best you can provide it. And if you're getting praise for your constantly good decisions, are you studying the laws of the games? Are you taking that opportunity to go back and look up what your decisions were? Were they correct? Were they not? Why? Why not? Did I seek out a credible source? Again, developmental assessments are one of those opportunities. Correcting and applying what you learned. So once you've taken your trends, identified them, and you have the correct information now, how do you apply that? So I'm going to go through a scenario here, just verbally. I couldn't find a very good clip on this one, so we're just going to talk this out. So a difficult decision has been made. This is how you identify something that's important that happens in a match. And it doesn't have to be something that's like subjective per se. It can be obvious, but if you don't know the answer, then it's difficult, right? It's tough to know what's correct. So let's say, for example, a defender deliberately kicks and passes back the ball to the goalkeeper, who is standing within their own goal area, the 6-yard, and back. They're within that 6-yard goal area, and they pick up the ball deliberately, and the referee calls a pass back handling violation on the goalkeeper. The restarts an indirect free kick, but where, right? You know it's an indirect free kick. You know that can't happen, but what you don't know is where the restart should take place. So if the kicker, the defender, is on the left side near where the AR is and passes it back to the side, right, on the side of the goal area, and the goalkeeper picks it up, let's say you assume it should be the closest point of entry to the goal area, and you place it on the side, and you restart, and nothing happens, but you're like, wow, I really don't know the answer to that. I'm not positive. I'm not confident in my decision there. That's one thing you would go and look up in laws of the game or seek out a credible advice. Law 13 says that in that scenario, the ball must be placed in the goal area parallel to the goal line on the goal area. So what that means is it needs to be placed on the 6-yard of the penalty or of the goal area, must be placed on the 6-yard line, even though it entered through the side. So that would be an example of applying a law incorrectly, trivial. It doesn't have a major impact in the match, but you're correcting it, and now next time it occurs, you know the answer. So if you were incorrect in that decision there, you need to ask yourself, why did I not know that? I didn't know that because I didn't know what Law 13 said, or I didn't know even what law that applied under, and where that was. So that is important. And you want to study those areas often, every so often. It's not necessary to go back and look at everything every week, but I would suggest every couple weeks, perhaps, you pop out the law book, read a chapter, read a law, start to finish. Ask yourself, did I understand what I just read? And then do it again in a couple weeks. Ask yourself, did I understand that? Or was there a situation in my match that this would apply to? That will help you a lot in being able to identify these fringe things like that. So now that you've identified trends and you've done everything to seek out the information to properly correct them, and you want to apply those for next time, how do you set the goals for next time? So what you need to first do is identify what you want to improve, maintain, or reduce. So you want to compare and contrast this year to last year. So that is 2024 to 2023. What went well? Why? What didn't go so well? And how do you want to change that for 2025? So let's say, for example, one thing you want to improve is your fitness. Okay. So if you want to improve your fitness, it was not so great in 2023, was okay in 2024. How do you make it better in 2025? you've identified that you started working out and training off the field this year, and that's made your game better. So you want to continue that by training more, maybe more specialty, maybe more frequently, whatever. So next year, 2025, you are even better. You are even more fit to referee. You're able to be in a better position. You're not getting fatigued in your matches, and it ultimately makes your game better. Let's say you like to maintain your game count, right? You're doing the right amount of games for you, 1 to 2, 3 a week. That's good for you. That's where you want to stay. You want to stay there because that works for my lifestyle. I'm happy with the games I'm receiving. I'm happy with all of that. That's what you want to maintain. You would like to reduce the amount of uh, lower level games you're doing. Okay. Let's say you want to try to strive for harder matches. Well, that may contradict what you want to maintain as your game count, right? Because harder games require more strain, more knowledge, more physicality on yourself. So if you're doing higher level matches, you may need to reduce the amount of games you're taking to make sure you're capable of doing those higher level matches. Um, and then how do you achieve that? We achieve that by being identified to do those higher level matches, making sure you're capable of handling them because you know the laws of the game, because you're fit, because you've proven that you are ready for that level in the next step. And that's done through observations, feedback and guidance, developmental assessments, things like that. So, looking back, what games did you do? Where do you want to get? What did you earn that year? Did you get a final on a conference or a league final? Were you invited to state cup? Did you do state cup games? What's the next step after that? President's Cup, youth regionals, things like that. Are those your goals for 2025? And how do you achieve those goals? Let's say you want to go to MLS Next Fest. Um, how do you get there, right? You have to go do these events before you can get to that event, right? That's a more prestigious, higher level event. So that may not be a 2025 goal, but that's a goal in the future. That's something you're striving for. So you always want to continue working your way up on what your personal goals are because you're going to continue to improve. Um, game count, word of caution, quality versus quantity. More is not always better. To do a game well is better than doing 6 games, 7 games more in a day. Um, that is my suggestion to you is do fewer games better than more games, but I understand that's not always cut and dry. Um, seek out feedback and credible guidance. Get developmental assessments from the ISRC. Make sure you are keeping up with fitness, and more so, you are being fit to referee versus refereeing to be fit. Do the exercises, do the training, stretch, cool down after matches, do the off the field work so on the field is easier. And interact with referees is important. There's a lot of camaraderie between the refereeing community. There's not a lot of us. I know it seems like there's a lot, but there's really not. It's a very small circle, especially as you get higher and higher. There's not a big pool of people that you will work with. So um, it's important that you learn and understand from each other and know that you've got everyone's back and they have your back because that's important as you move up. You have to be able to be reliant on your team on the field. So just kind of to wrap it up here before we enter the Q&A portion, it is important to set goals because otherwise you just show up at a game and you just kind of do it, and that's not necessarily going to make you better. It's going to just keep you right where you are, kind of an autopilot, and you're just going to show up, you do the game, and go home. You really should try to apply a stepping progress of how you can go from where you are to where you want to be, so you can reflect on where you were before and see the progress you've made, and that's a great feeling to know that you've climbed that. So I have concluded this, so we will open up for questions for what do we got, Jenny? Another 10, 15 minutes or whatever. So
yes, and I've allowed people to talk, so they have
okay. Okay. So what we'll do is if you have any questions, just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask the question, and we'll have a little discussion about it or what have you. So did we get any Q&A inside during the presentation? I thought one popped up. Any questions from anybody about really about anything? James, I see you unmuted yourself. You have a question or something you want to talk about, clarify?
I thought you did a good job, Shane, first off.
Appreciate that.
Secondly, I do have, as an assigner,
Sure.
one of the things I think that a lot of people forget is fit or to be fit. I think you put a very big emphasis on that, and we see a lot of that. I know sometimes a lot of people think that if I do the good on this game, I should prove myself here, I can get some good games next time.
Sure.
And my question for you is, as your season goes along, if you feel that you're not doing up to par, should you let the assigner know, or should you ask the assigner to have a mentor or somebody come out to watch them to see where they need to improve upon further?
So
Shane, I'll answer
yeah.
that question if you don't mind.
Okay. Yes, go ahead, Abby.
Excuse me, let me. Excellent question. First, if a referee doesn't feel like for some reason they need some evaluation in terms of something that they're not doing well, why would we encourage probably a signer who should be aware? But a referee, when they walk off the field, probably have an idea. So they should tell their signer, listen, these games right now, I'm not comfortable. And as Shane mentioned earlier, and this is probably time you should reach directly to the office, Jenny, to say, can we have, like you said, a mentor or someone to come and just coach me and watch my game to give me something to observe so I can improve on. And that's why we have a development program in the state that you can seek for development evaluation, not assessment. So it's like a mentor. Okay. And if you're an assigner, we also have the program within the state. Jenny can discuss it further. What it does is basically it tells you that you can bring somebody to your event as an assigner, and we can actually provide a direct mentor for those events, not just for the referee, for a period of time. Okay?
Thank you, Abby. Good to see you too.
Real quick, Abby mentioned the program. I believe it's new this year that every tournament that's sanctioned by the ISRC will have on site a referee, mentor, or coach. That's sole purpose is to do exactly that, is to go out and provide feedback to referees working the tournament. So those resources are becoming available are becoming more accessible than they ever were. So those can be something, James, that if you have a tournament that is available to you.
Oh, as a mentor, I'm well aware. I'm doing everything as much as I can, I guess.
Well,
Thank you.
for anybody else, that's information. Any other questions from anyone or anything that we still have some time here?
Maybe not specifically for Shane, but for the ISRC. Next, I see that you guys put together an email of resources that you provide, which is great. Which is why I was familiar with why I remembered to attend this. But if you could include that in next month information about the referee mentors and that referees can have people come out to watch you and get feedback on it, that would be, I appreciate that.
The developmental evaluations you're talking about?
Yes.
Yes, we can do that.
Appreciate it, Dom. Anyone else here? We still got a few minutes. Last comments on this topic here, or anything really?
Is there a difference between requesting somebody to come mentor you and coaching you at a game, or is it the same?
So for a referee that would be requesting a developmental evaluation, they're synonymous, right? If you put in that request on the ISRC website, which actually I may be able to pull up here and do very quickly. Let's see. Illinois soccer referee. Okay, so 1 second. Let me pull up this here. Okay, so let's share this here. So you guys can now see the ISRC website, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the website that we're referring to when you would like to go and request a developmental evaluation. It's IllinoisSoccerRefs.org. You go up here to Illinois Referee Development, and you click on 2026 Referee Evaluation Request, and that's going to take you to this form. On this form, you would want to select developmental when it says upgrading in this question, and this can probably be clarified a little bit more. But basically, you just fill this out, your email, date, all this information, what type of game it is, the information of the game, etc., and the cost incurred for that. So referee development is always $75 for the referee. So that is what we're referring to when we say a developmental evaluation if requested by the referee for any match. This can be an adult match. This can be a youth match at a tournament. This could be a league match. As long as it's sanctioned by U.S. Soccer, it's eligible for this. And that'll be a full assessment evaluation, and you'll get feedback. I have one I'm actually going to do in about an hour, so that I've already done for developmental assessment. So that we're going to spend it about 30 to 45 minutes discussing the game, what they did well, what didn't go well, and what can be improved, and how to achieve those goals. So that's exactly what this is. Good question. Anyone else? All right. Well, if there's no other questions, then Jenny, I think we are all set there.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Quick question for Jenny.
Yes.
So the President's Cup coming up next year for 2025 in St. Louis. If we need a ride, will you guys be able to provide one, or do we have to get there on our own since it's closer?
We always have a carpool, so
Carpool.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. So at the office, correct, in Arlington Heights?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Well, then that concludes the webinar.